A Snicker of Magic, Chapter 15. Florentine said I had magic in my veins, word for word. That's what she said. Uh-huh. Aunt Cleo pulled a red plate out of the sink. She passed it off to me, and I swirled the dish towel around it once before setting it off to dry. She says she knows things about this town, I said. She knows things about people. She says our people might be magic. Cleo didn't say anything. I looked to my uncle instead. You hear me, Boone? We might have some family magic. Boone sat on the couch, fixing shiny new strings to his banjo. New strings for new songs. Sincerest regards, the Beetle. I couldn't wait to tell Jonah what I'd written. I maybe shouldn't have drawn a tiny heart in place of the O's and songs, but otherwise I think I did a fine job. We got magic in our veins, Boone sang softly as he turned the banjo pegs extra tight, then plinked the string. Plink, zing, thrum-de-ding, thrum-de-thrum, bing. That banjo's already making happier music, I grinned. Spin-diddly, Boone winked at me. Mighty sweet of the Beetle. Thrum-de-ding, thrum-de-ding. This Florentine person's talking nonsense, Liz. If we had magic in our veins, we'd be a little luckier than we are. I don't know anybody who's worse luck than a harness. Pickles have bad luck too, said Franny Joe. Ugh. Cleo groaned and rested her arms on the sink. I ain't having this conversation. I promised Holly that I wouldn't mention those stupid stories. Boone and I said at the same time. What stories? Cleo fumbled around in her apron pocket until she found her lighter. The flame on the tent trembled when she tried to touch it to the cigarette in her mouth. Just silly old folk tales, she mumbled. But the way Aunt Cleo glanced at me right then told me the exact opposite. I could tell by the sad in her eyes that she didn't believe those stories were folk tales at all. Tell me what you know, I said. I can handle it. I'm in 6th grade. Cleo sighed and set her dripping dish on the counter. Then she stomped out of the room. When Cleo shuffled back into the kitchen, she was holding the framed picture that hung on the wall of her former craft room, my current bedroom, the picture of the man standing beside a hot air balloon. Started with him, Cleo passed the frame to me. That man is Stone Weatherly, I nodded. He was one of the Threadbear brothers. The magician? Boone rocketed off the couch. His boots clumped across the kitchen tiles. He was still cradling the banjo in his arms. I saw our faces reflected in the glass as we leaned in close to study the picture. That magician, Cleo said, was also your no-good, low-down, deadbeat drifter great-great-grandfather. We're part Threadbear? I nearly hollered out. Then we do have magic in our veins, big magic. I love magic, Franny Joe squealed. Biscuit yipped and wiggled her tail. Y'all won't love this magic, Cleo shook her head. We're kin to Stone Weatherly. Stone, you know the story, Felicity. Stone is the brother who lost the dad-blame duel. Boone held the picture closer to his face. So, what's that got to do with us? Means it ain't magic we got in our veins now, said Cleo. All we got is the stupid curse that woman gave. Which woman? I mumbled. I've never heard anything about a witch. Thunder cracked against the sky so loud that the dishes by the sink rattled and the lights flickered. Franny Joe ran for Cleo's arms. Biscuit crawled under the couch. We better get the flashlights out, Cleo said, just in case we lose power. Boone and I followed Cleo so closely down the hall that we all slammed into each other when she stopped. The closet door fell off its hinges when Cleo opened it, but she simply sighed and slung the door against the wall. Before the brothers Threadbear had their stupid duel, they called on some old witch woman to set a curse on the loser. Cleo plopped a big orange shoebox labeled junk, etc., into my arms. And it was a humdinger of a curse. Curse to wander through the night, till cords line and all's made right. I shivered as Cleo repeated the words Oliver had already told me. Boone tapped nervously against his banjo. But that was a long time ago. That's got nothing to do with us, right? His voice sounded shrill and crackly. Stone Weatherly lost the duel, Cleo repeated loudly, half of her body hidden in the closet, rummaging through its boxes and quilts. She emerged holding a small wooden container, which she settled on top of the junk box. And because he lost, he had to leave town and live out that curse for the rest of his days. He couldn't sit still. He'd sleep for a few hours, but then he'd wake up in the middle of the night, sleepwalking, sleep running, sleep dancing a jig. Stone became restless. He managed to marry, eventually, but he never had much of a life. Hardly ever saw his wife or his kids because he couldn't settle down. He couldn't set roots in any place. He was cursed with a restless soul. Like Mama, I gulped. Cleo didn't answer. Neither did Boone, but I felt my heart whisper against my ribs, yes. I swallowed down the fear in my throat. Why'd he fly a balloon? Because that's the only way he felt any peace. Cleo scooped up a quilt with her free arm and tossed it into the hallway. As long as Stone's body was moving, his heart could rest. He saw the whole world from the basket of that balloon, but the whole world's nothing compared to people you love. Stone didn't ever see his family. And we're cursed the same as him. I didn't ask it like a question. I said it in the for sure affirmative. We were cursed. Cursed pickles. Cursed harnesses. This is only a story, Cleo murmured. She huffed as she reached farther back into the closet, pulling out extra pillows and another shoebox of flashlights and batteries. Then she propped the door back against the closet. We piled all of our survival gear plus a bag of Cheetos into the hallway. Boone didn't help us. He was still studying the picture of Stone Weatherly. Cleo, Boone narrowed his eyes at the picture. Is that a banjo on his back? Guitar, Cleo said. Stone's brother Barry played the banjo. He played the very same one you're holding, in fact. Boone's eyes glanced up slowly from the picture. Come again? Cleo's nostrils flared as she looked away. She took a long draw of her cigarette. I'm done telling these stories. I promised Holly I wouldn't mention them. Y'all are going to get me in a heap of trouble. Boone's eyes sparkled mad blue. He pulled the banjo off his shoulder and shook it at Cleo. Why do I have a banjo that belonged to the brothers Threadbear? Cleo heaved a sad sigh. She leaned back against the wall. The lights flickered again. Thunder pounded against the rooftop. Cleo narrowed her eyes up at the ceiling, took a cigarette out of her mouth, and hollered, Hush! Cleo was the only woman I knew who was brave enough to yell at a storm. Cleo, Boone clipped. He was the only man brave enough to yell at my aunt. Fine, Cleo seethed. Our mother's family lived way back in the backwoods of Virginia. One day, when she was still a little bitty thing, she saw a fancy old car zooming down the gravel road towards her house. Mother said an old man stepped out of the car. He was a scrawny feller with sad eyes and shaky hands. The man said he'd come there looking for Stone Weatherly. Well, Mother'd grown up hearing stories about her grandfather, of course, but she'd never met the man. Mother told the visitor all that. She told him about the day Stone Weatherly's balloon drifted off into the sunset and never came back. Nobody'd seen Stone Weatherly in years. Nobody'd ever see him again, as far as I know. I let out a shattered breath, because I knew somebody had seen Stone Weatherly again. Oliver had seen him. Stone had gone looking for Barry, the same as Barry had gone looking for him. I opened my mouth to tell Aunt Cleo, but my heart kicked hard against my ribs. Wait. And then again, not yet. Cleo spoke softly. Mama told the old visitor that Stone Weatherly was gone. She'd no more than said it when the old man sat down on the porch and cried a waterfall of tears. The visitor introduced himself as Barry Weatherly, and then he told her the real story of what happened to the brothers Threadbear. He told her about that mean old witch woman who set the curse. Before Barry left, he gave Mother the banjo that he'd played alongside his brother all those years. Said the banjo didn't sound good without his brother playing too. He told her to give the banjo to Stone if she ever saw him again. If not, he told her to find a good place for it. Mother gave the banjo to me. I passed it on along to you. And there was something else, too. Cleo popped open the wooden container she'd pulled from the closet. She rummaged past piles of pictures and postcards and pulled out an oval-shaped locket dangling from a long silver chain. She handed the locket to me. Barry Weatherly gave this to Mother, too, Cleo said. He said it reminded him of better times. You can hear something rattling around in the locket if you shake it, but nobody's ever been able to get it open. Cleo was right. I pried at the lock with my fingernails, but it wouldn't budge. You can keep it if you want, Cleo shrugged. I don't figure you can put much magic in a locket. It's safe. The locket was kind of big and tacky, but spin-diddly too. I looped it around my neck. The lights flickered and dimmed, then flashed back to bright again. Cleo, Boone said thoughtfully, am I playing a cursed banjo? Nah, Cleo said. The banjo ain't cursed, it just doesn't make good music anymore. That's good to hear now. Boone pressed his palm against his forehead and wailed. No wonder my career won't kick-start, Cleo. I'm playing a moody banjo. Your career, Cleo huffed, won't kick-start because you keep saying you're Boone Taylor instead of Boone Harness. Cleo, I interrupted, you do know that Oliver Weatherly is. Of course I know he's related. Cleo waved off my question, but I don't want to talk to him about those brothers, and I don't want to talk to y'all about them anymore either. That story is done. It was done 100 years ago. We can't change the past, so I don't want to hear anything about it ever again. But Cleo, no more questions. Lightning-colored words flashed against the wall, fierce, determined, purposed. I sat up tall and pushed my shoulders back. I traced my thumb back and forth across the smooth surface of Barry Weatherly's locket. At least tell me what our curse says exactly. I won't ask you any more about it after that. Not our curse, Cleo whispered. His curse. When Stone Weatherly lost the duel, the old witch woman locked her hand around his wrist and said these words. Foolish heart who fought and failed, where talent bloomed, your greed prevailed. Cursed to toil till labor worn, you'll spin up ashes, you'll harvest thorns. Now pack your dreams, make haste, take flight. You're cursed to wander through the night, till chords align and all's made right. Where sweet amends are made and spoken, shadows dance, the curse is broken. It means we, Cleo's voice trailed off. She cleared her throat and said, it means he was cursed to wander and never rest, cursed to fail at everything he put his hand to. But that's only if you believe the stories, which I most certainly do not, and I don't want to talk about them again after this. Me neither, Boone said, but he stared down at his banjo like it had betrayed him. I traced my finger back and forth across the smooth face of the locket. I did want to talk about the curse. I had too many questions buzzing inside my brain now, such as, if the curse was real, had it traveled my family's history all the way to us? Did that mean us pickles would always be wandering from town to town? That Boone would never catch a break? That Cleo would always have so much of sad caught in her eyes? And what about me and Franny Joe? Would we fail at everything we tried? What was the point of even trying to do the duel if I was cursed to fail? What difference would it make for Mama to see me happy if she was cursed to keep on traveling? I had too many questions fighting for the front seat on my tongue. Right at that moment, I didn't care about getting any answers. There was only one thing I wanted. I sure wish Mama was here, I gulped. Cleo kept the window shut that night because of the storm, so I couldn't smell the waffle cones baking. That smell always made me feel like Mama was safe, even if I couldn't see her. On my way home from the gallery, the air hadn't smelled like anything at all. Instead, the wind felt too warm and too prickly, electric almost. I sure do too, said Cleo. I wish she'd stayed here. Stay here is what I wish. As if we'd willed it to be, the front door burst open and Mama pushed her way inside. I squealed in relief just as the thunder smacked so loud and clear you'd think somebody had dropped the world and broke it in two. Tornado warning, Mama said, locking the door behind her, as if that little bitty door lock could keep out a whole big tornado. They let us leave work early. The radio says we need to get to a safe place. We all looked at Cleo then. She was the only safe place any of us really knew. We probably ought to get in the bathroom, Cleo said, heaving as she got up off the floor. Franny Joe hopped up into Mama's arms. Then all three of us pickles, plus 2 harnesses, were picking up all our worldly possessions, which wasn't much, and running for the bathroom. Biscuit! I ran for my dog's hiding place, but Boone was already kneeling down in front of the couch, pulling my dog up into his arms. I didn't know much about Boone, Harness, Taylor, but I decided right then that I loved him. Mama and Cleo were already in the bathroom, hollering my name, but I ran to my backpack first. I wouldn't have been able to see anything if it weren't for all the purple lightning flashing outside. My heart was thumping, yes, 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 or maybe run, 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 as I shoved aside all the crumpled homework papers and books. Finally, I found my blue book. We gotta go, Liz, Boone hollered. He had a banjo on his back and a trembling dog tucked under his arm, and he was holding out his hand, waiting for me to grab on. One more thing, I yelled, but the storm was yelling louder than me. I ran to the corner of Cleo's apartment, where we'd piled the grocery sacks full of clothes and junk that we'd brought from Kentucky. I dug through the bags until I found Mama's paintbrushes, still tied together and wrapped in an old T-shirt. I held the brushes and my blue book tight against my heart, and I ran for Boone. "Good girl," Boone said. His hand was strong around mine as he led me down the hall. I wasn't afraid of the storm at all right then, not with him leading the way, not with my cursed family so close to me. We all crammed into Cleo's dark bathroom and shut the door. At first, none of us talked. We listened to the storm howling all around the apartment complex. I heard the rain whoosh up against the building. I was glad Florentine had her stupid burdens there with her on a night like this. At least they kept her safe from the wind and rain. Mama sighed and stretched her arm around me to pull me close. She smelled like the sugar wind. "What have y'all been talking about tonight?" she said. Her voice was tired. I couldn't see Cleo's face in the dark, but somehow she told me, without words, to keep our conversation a secret. So I leaned against Mama's shoulder and said, "Nothing." And then lullaby music filled up the air around us. Boone strummed the sweetest tune on his banjo. The thunder outside was a rock song, electric and loud and strange, but the rain outside whooshed and swooshed. The rain was a gentler song. Boone played like the rain. Cleo didn't turn on the flashlight, but if she had, I probably would have seen all kinds of dancing words. Words like failure, fake, regret, curse. Curse to wander through the night, till chords align and all's made right. Mama leaned over and kissed the top of my hair. I laced my fingers in with hers. I would keep her safe and steady in a world that kept rocking my soul. "Stay," I wanted to tell her. "Rest your heart here. Stay." But I knew I was no better at keeping her in this place than Cleo's door lock was at keeping out the storm. When the storm finally passed and we all shuffled back to our sleeping places, I plopped down on the inflatable mattress, thinking about all I'd heard and all I'd seen. "We're cursed," I whispered. "We're pickles," said Franny Joe. "Same thing," I said back. I licked my chapped lips and reached over for the locket Cleo had given me. I held the locket up and let it swing back and forth. "I wonder if there's anything stronger than a curse," I whispered. Franny Joe didn't answer. She was already breathing steady, sweet dream breaths beside me. "Where sweet amends are made and spoken, shadows dance, the curse is broken." I didn't speak the words out loud. I just moved my mouth around them and wondering what in the world they meant. As I swung the locket back and forth, I heard something, a familiar something, that sent shivers up my spine. I sat up and lifted the locket up to my ear. Then I shook it. I shook it again to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Barry Weatherly's locket had the wind chime wind caught inside it.